everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I'm sharing with you day 24 artist trading card for the month-long all of June 2020 artist trading card a day. That's the hashtag ATCAD2020 challenge from the Art Joy of Sharing Facebook group art community, as well as the Art Joy of Sharing live stream channel. You can watch us live stream and make ATCs this month anytime on Thursday at 8:30 Pacific, 10:30 Central Time in the United States. So today I wanted to play with some crackling medium. Peg had made a beautiful artist trading card for, I think it was day 22 maybe, and she had this awesome crackling stuff on there. So I decided to try this one called Weathered Wood. Hadn't even opened it yet. It's from DecoArt. And the first thing you do is you have some acrylic paint that's dried on a background. So these are some scraps of Bristol cardstock that I cut 3.5 by 2.5 to make artist trading cards. And I have some DecoArt Fluid Media acrylic paint, and I just painted them 3 different colors of acrylic paint and then set them aside to dry, because they have to be dry. I guess I dried them with the heat tool. Then here's the crackling medium called Weathered Wood, and you're supposed to put an even coat of that over your painted surface and let that dry. And you should let it dry naturally. Depending on what you do with the heat tool, it might change the amount of crazing or crackling that you get. So you just spread it over your surface that has a layer of acrylic paint on it and set it aside to dry. So that's what I did. I wasn't sure which one I would be using, or I'm just making backgrounds at this point. I just wanted to try out the crackling medium and see if I could get something similar to what Peg had, because hers was so cool. Mine didn't turn out the same. So she obviously used a different crackle medium than Weathered Wood. So here they are dry. And then the next step is to put a contrasting layer of paint over the top of the crackling medium, and that's when the crackling should start. So over the green gold one, I put some Titan Buff, and it did start crackling right away, but I think you're going to need to mess with the thickness of things. How thick was the medium? How thick was the paint over the top? Probably the paint underneath doesn't really matter how thick you make that, but they didn't all turn out the same as far as how much crackle showed up. So this is the diarrhealide yellow over the top of the cobalt teal, which turned it into basically green gold. I forgot that, of course, the yellow is going to be very translucent and the color underneath is going to show through, because that's all yellows are translucent unless they're mixed with some type of a titanium. So it wasn't crackling very much, and I thought maybe I should put a little bit more on this one with a Titan Buff, and that actually stopped it from crackling in the areas that I put the second layer. So don't do that. Just make it one layer and call it good. So then I thought I would put something over this quinacridone nickel hazel gold, and I didn't want it to be just the buff color, so I mixed a little bit of the quinacridone with it, and then I ended up getting kind of a peachy color. And then I just had to let those dry. I had to set them aside and let them dry, come back later. So here's what they look like once they're all dry. It's hard to see. You'll be able to see the crackle in the close-ups at the end, but I decided to use the quinacridone one out of the 3. It really does look like wood. Like, it looks like a wood grain texture. So Weathered Wood, it really looks like painted barn wood that has been left, for 100 years, and the paint has cracked and peeled, and depending on the colors you use, you can really get it to look exactly like wood. So I decided to do a little bit of collaging over the top. So I cut out this little square of something that I had stenciled on another piece of card with that same quinacridone gold color. And then this torn piece is some cork paper. It has anchors on the other side, but I didn't want the anchors. I wanted just the cork looking stuff, textural, interesting element. And I was thinking about spirals because this stenciling is a spiral. It's actually a stencil girl stencil that has like kind of these Celtic designs on it. I'll link it in the description box below so you can see what it looks like. But it's a really cool stencil. The whole stencil is really cool. You're just getting a tiny little piece of it on this tiny little piece of card. But yeah, pretty cool. So I decided to stamp some spirals using a discontinued Stampin' Up! Set. I'll try to find it on eBay and link it in the description box below if you want to find it. It's got some stars and then has some spirals in 2 different sizes. The color of ink that I chose is called Orange Blossom, and it's pretty similar to quinacridone gold. A little bit more rusty color, but then I decided I really wanted to add some color to the background. It just seemed too one note to me. So I got out the green gold, the dialeride. Yeah, no, not the green gold. I got out regular gold, the dialeride yellow, and the cobalt teal again. And I'm using a baby wipe and just kind of lightly going over the background in the direction of the cracking. You know how wood has grain. There's definitely a grain to this. And just adding some other colors to it to make it more interesting because it just seemed blah, boring. And I can either smear or pat with the application using the baby wipe, which I did both. I can also wipe off some if I don't like, how much is on there. I can wipe it off, wipe it back. So that worked pretty well, and I ended up with some interesting colors in the background, and I think it really enhanced the whole crackle situation. I thought it looked better than the boringness that I had had before. So now it's time to glue my stuff on. I'm just going to use I think I used a glue stick for just the paper, and then the rest of it I glued on with tacky glue because the other things were more heavier and harder to glue down. I really enjoy Aleene's tacky glue. That stuff has been around forever. I mean, forever. Way before. I mean, I used it as a child, and it was around before that. So I don't even know how long Aleene's tacky glue has been around, but it's great for gluing things down that are hard to glue. So now I have some twine. This is a jute twine, and I'm just making kind of like a little tangle, a loopy tangle out of it. And I'm going to glue that onto the card. And this is when it really becomes textural. This one is fairly thick in texture for sure. And I'm going to use Aleene's tacky glue again. I just put some on the strands on what was I considered the back side of it that I was going to glue down, and then press it down with the baby wipe, and kind of catches the excess glue, and it's tacky. It holds really quickly, but then it dries fairly quickly too. So you don't need to worry too much about it. So I thought that looked interesting. I've got my swirls, and then I've got this like kind of swirly, tangly piece of twine on there, and I've got the swirl in the little paper piece as well. And it contrasts with this very vertical crackle that's really up, and it's a grain. It's not an overall square little crackles. It's like an up and down grain type of crackle. So I went ahead and glued the piece of cork paper over the top, and I'm squishing it down with my hand really hard to make sure that it goes over and in between the twine, because it makes it bumpy. It's bumpy. So then I get out a different archival ink pad. This one is potting soil, which is a brown, and I'm using that around the edges and just to kind of grunge and scuff over the top of the twine and over the top of the all this textural stuff that's on there, and it catches in the high points and darkens up the twine a little bit. It makes it look more interesting, I think. Then it's time for shadows. I like to go around things and add a dark blended line around them, which to me makes them look as if they're part of the composition and part of that, that it's intentional that it was on there. It's not just slapped on there like a sticker. So I'm going around the card, I'm going around the twine, I'm going around the cork paper, and then I'm blending out my lines with a water tank brush, because with this type of ink that I'm using here in this Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pen, it has India ink in it, and it just has a few seconds that you can blend it. So that's what I'm doing, is just blending and blending around all the different things, and I really think that that makes a difference. I think you should do that, with whatever product you want, whether it's a Stabilo wall pencil, whether it's some type of a watercolor situation with a brush, that works too, just so long as you can blend it out with the water a little bit and give yourself a shadow around things. Looks a lot better that way. So now I need something, and I decide this is looking pretty southwestern between the colors, the crackled wood, just the textures of things, and then to me spirals remind me of the sunshine, because that's a really common motif around the Southwest, where you have a spiral and then rays coming off of it to make a sunshine. I see that a lot. So I decided that this needed to be a desert, southwestern looking card, which is close to my heart because that's where I live. So I drew a saguaro cactus, which is, I drew the classic kind of a saguaro cactus, which has the 3 arms. Of course, they don't all have 3 arms. Some of them have 20 arms, and some of them don't have any arms because they're not old enough. It takes them, I don't know, 100 years to get an arm. So I have 2 of them in my front yard that have been growing as long as I've been living here, which is about 19 years, I think. And when we moved in, they were probably a foot tall, and now one of them is about 7 feet tall, but it is just straight up skinny, just that center part. It doesn't have any arms, and it's not going to have any arms for a long time. So I drew this on watercolor paper scrap, so it's a thicker piece of paper, and then I'm coloring with, again, the Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pens, and there is no blending time really. When you're coloring on watercolor paper, it needs to be on a sealed surface. Watercolor paper is very absorbent, so it just absorbs the ink right into it, and you can't really blend it, and that's fine, because swirls look stripy because they have indentations. So it comes out, it goes in, it comes out, it goes in. If you were to take a slice of it, you would see that it's just up and down and up and down. It actually looks like a cog. If you have a slice of a saguaro, it looks from the side, it looks like a cog. But do not cut them down and slice them open, because in our state, that is a crime. They are protected. They're a protected species. So you have to have a permit to move them if you're gonna build a house out in some wilderness that you bought and you want to move them. You need to have a permit, and then you can't destroy them. You can either sell them to a nursery or move them another place on your property. So just a fun little fact about saguaro cactuses. They are the state tree here in Arizona, and they're really tall. People don't realize it until you see one in person, that they can be like 20 feet tall. If you go out to Saguaro National Monument, it's like going in a forest, a very prickly forest. Don't touch them because you're gonna get prickles. So once I was done coloring it, I added some highlights with a white Posca pen, and then I cut it out, and I don't want the white edges to show. of the paper. You know, it's a thick paper. So I went around with my brush pen and colored in the edges so that they would not be bright white. And then I'm going to glue this onto my card again with the tacky glue because it's going over bumpy things and it needs to be held tight down to all the bumpy things. Part of it's over the cork paper, part of it's a little bit of it is on the twine. So yeah, just kind of making it all fit. And then of course I'm going to add the shadows to that too. Excuse me. With that same brown pit pen. I hope you guys are enjoying ATC a day all the month of June, and I've had a video almost every single day this month. Yeah, I did miss one or two maybe. I think just one. Also the live streams on Thursdays at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, 10:30 Central. We've been doing ATCs on those as well. So there's been a lot of videos this month on my channel. So if you did enjoy it, please remember to give me a thumbs up. That's the first step. You can leave a comment or a question below. I usually answer within 24 hours. You can share this on Pinterest. You can, of course, subscribe if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, turn on your notification bells so that you know when there's a new video. All those things help out my channel, and I'm very grateful because it helps other people on YouTube get recommendations of my channel. If someone says it's valuable, then YouTube says, oh, I should recommend this to someone else. So I picked out a word sticker from the Tim Holtz pack. I think it's called Big Chat, and it says sunshine. I went around the edges with the pen because, you know, I wanted it to have those same dark edges. And then after I glued it on, I decided it was too white. And so I took a rust-colored marker that I had been using, scribbled it on a piece of plastic, which ended up being the top of the stamp set box, and then picked that up and kind of grunged up the word sunshine with a little bit of that, which is basically the same color as the background. And it's now not so white and shiny. So that's it for day 24. 6 more days of ATCs, 6 more videos. So that is it for me. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.